Hi there. This week we're going to discuss what does a bookkeeper do? And if you're new and you're thinking about being a bookkeeper, or if you're brand new and you are a bookkeeper, but you're just getting your feet wet, I think this video and the supporting article will really help you. Now, I'm going to give you the differences between what a regular bookkeeper would do as opposed to a legal bookkeeper. So there'll be a little bit of nuance into this video, but I think it's going to help you understand exactly the tasks that should land on a bookkeeper's lap. And this is going to be a very high level, shorter video, but I'm going to touch upon the different services. And if you want more in depth on any of these, just let me know. So we'll just start with the basics. I'm going to assume that you're a bookkeeper using QuickBooks, although you could use Xero, but I'm not familiar with Xero as well as I am with QuickBooks. I only use QuickBooks. So if you're wanting to use Xero, you can. I think you could find probably somebody who will help you with knowing how to use Xero. QuickBooks, on the other hand, it's probably the most popular. It is the most popular one in the United States, and it is popular pretty much worldwide. It is a product that you're going to find most of your clients are in. Now, that being said, our job is to take that data. It's connected bank feed, so the bank accounts are connected to QuickBooks by the client, and then we are responsible for aggregating the data, downloading the expenses and the income. That's the basic high level part of our job. What does the bank feed look like? I'm going to take you there and show you. Now, bank feeds are fairly easy, but as you can see right here by looking at this test file, that sometimes transactions are already in place in the system, and it's where you're going to see these green matches. So you can basically come to this box here and just resort the categorization, kind of group them together. Even though it says it matches to a deposit of $868.15, sometimes depending on the client you're working with, you might want to validate that that's actually the deposit and the date. So you can see the date was 11/18, the date's 11/18. So I'm fairly confident that one is the correct one. And as you can go through all of these, you can see that these are all basically, most of them are deposits. This is a purchase of hardware, and it's the transactions already in place. So when you see this green one match found, you don't want to enter Hicks hardware again because it's already in the system. You actually want to match the bank feed transaction to the transaction that's already in place. So if in this case, somebody actually printed a check and gave the check to Hicks hardware, and so because the check was printed out of QuickBooks, it's in place in the system. So you wouldn't want to replicate that. You don't want to double up the information. The one below that is PG&E, and that is probably utilities, and we can look at that. And it's the bill payment that it's actually connected to. So somebody has already in the system entered a bill payment, and now we're matching there. This is really high level. You can, I don't know if I have my right tool turned on. I really highly recommend getting right tool, but you can see there's quite a few transactions here that are already in place that have green highlights and the dates aligned 10/8, 10/8. And you can see that the transactions are here. I'm going to try this. So I hit the shift key. Oh, it worked. And I'm going to accept all these transactions. So I actually had the top one clicked, and then I selected the bottom one with the shift key down. And when I did that, it did that for all of them. So I can hit accept, and all of those are going to get put in place. So that's how quickly you can go through bank feeds. Now, like I mentioned, bank feeds are about 85% correct. First thing you want to do is match to existing transactions. Don't go and add duplicates. So make sure that's part of your work. But then you can see here that there's two matches for this payment out to Pam Seats. Or is it? We don't know. So we want to look at the code. So the bank detail does say Pam Seats right here. And there's a Books by Bessie transaction as a bill payment for that same amount. And then there's an expense for this Pam Seats, dated 11/18, dated 11/18. So that's the one I want to match it to. So that's how I'm going to match to anything that's got multiple. When I did that, you can see here that this transaction is the only one left now. And it says Books by Bessie. So I want to make sure that this transaction gets matched. So if I go up here, let me move my picture here. If I go up to the spyglass and click on it, I can see the most recent transaction. So for example, here's Books by Bessie, and I can click on it. And I can see that here's a transaction. It's a bill that was entered, and then it was a recording of a payment, number 3, and it was into the checking account that we're trying to match the bank feeds. And here's the match that I just matched it to. If you want to go back to the bill, you're going to click there, and it should bring you back to the bill. And then you can see that it was put in that Books by Bessie is their bookkeeper, and they're paying $75 to the bookkeeper. So that's what that looks like when you're looking at bank fees. Pretty important stuff. Definitely something that you're going to need to do as a bookkeeper. That's pretty important. You're going to need to know what categories all these things go into, like a rental. If you don't know where that goes, you're going to want to look, and you can see that this says a backhoe rental. Most of the times they don't give you that kind of detail. So you might just have A1 rental, and then you're going to actually open up another tab and search Google or chat. That's why I highly recommend getting Right Tool, because Right Tool will have, once you connect Right Tool, it's a browser extension. You'll have all these buttons that will show up here. That's a one click and it will do the search for you. Saves a lot of time. So for the price, it's pretty inexpensive software. Although I know when you're starting out as a bookkeeper, you probably aren't going to want to pay for a lot of software. We don't have a lot of money and we want to try to save on expenses. But in this case, that's definitely a tool that you would want to have in your arsenal. So now you're going through all those transactions and you're going to find that there's some that you don't know where they go. And in that case, you might want to start a list or put it into the Ask My Accountant account. This is an account that I renamed Ask/Need Help because I want to Ask My Accountant doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, but because if the client had a question, they would want to put it in Ask My Accountant, but I'm asking the client because I'm doing the work. So I just call Ask/Need Help. And then I put it in there, and then we kind of can communicate back and forth on that transaction. So it's a pretty cool tip, but that's part of your chart of accounts. So what is a chart of accounts? It's the names of all the categories for your client. Now, with QuickBooks, if you're getting a brand new account started, you're going to get a preloaded chart of accounts. I think they've added where you can get a specialized one. So if you are working as a bookkeeper and you're working with an attorney, you're going to want that attorney one in the books, or at least get an idea of what that looks like. I also have a chart of account I'm going to share with you, a listing for attorneys. This is a smaller one. There's more detail that you can get on some of them, but you want to at least have something that's got some of the accounts that are associated with attorneys that really aren't associated with any other industry. Now, when you are looking at the books, you need to know where the categories are. You need to know what categories the transactions go into. Well, that's part of figuring it out. If you're new to bookkeeping, you're going to want to look at the prior bookkeeper's records to see where they put things. You're also going to want to ask the client for a tax return. Tell them you want to tie the books to tax. It's a very good action to do. You could grab a spreadsheet and just put all the, grab the profit and loss, which is a financial statement that you're going to be preparing for your client every month anyway, but you're going to pull that for the prior year, the year of the tax return, and then just put that on a spreadsheet, and then pull the numbers out of the spreadsheet into another column so you can kind of figure out where they align. Some of the accounts you'll see that are profit and loss based, there's a whole section on the tax return. It's really important to get familiarized with the tax return so you can look at the profit and loss section and look and see how they categorize. And you might see things like see Schedule C, see Schedule D. And if you keep flipping through the pages of the tax return, you're going to see those sections. And then in it might say other expenses, and it will have a list like telephone, office supplies, software. And that might all be listed in another section. And that total might be on the tax return, but you at least have a way to see what's in those and where they align to and how they connect. Now, when it comes to the chart of accounts, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what my chart of accounts looks like. And then we'll take a look here. So here's a law firm one. I'll go to the top here. So this is a generic one, and it doesn't have every transaction. I highlighted in yellow, like a light yellow, the ones that could possibly be on a tax return, buildings and land. Typically with law firms, those things are kind of extracted into an LLC and they don't really have them intermingled with their law firm books. Unless it's an older existing firm, the firm may or may not own the building that they're in, that they're paying rent to, and they might have that on their books. But it's pretty rare that we see that in today's world. Usually the attorneys will buy a building to move into, and they'll have that as a separate file for the property, and then you just pay rent to the other company. They'll have a whole nother company name. Now, the partner stuff here, the partner equity and the partner contribution distribution, it's really only if the client's in a partnership. And that's the typical entity type for a law firm. It could be, you could see LLP, LLC after the initials. There's a few other ones with law firms. I believe I have another article, another video on different entity structures of law firms. But for the most part, you're going to see that they're a partnership. And you would want to have partners. If there's more than one partner, you want to have partner A, partner B with the sub accounts of partner contribution, distribution that you can roll up into partner equity as demonstrated here. And then you've got pretty much just a generic different ones that you'll see for almost every company file. The professional dues in CLE is one that you're going to see on a law firm's books for the most part. You might see that on professional dues on others, but you'll want to have that listed here. Bar association dues is another one. I like to separate that one, especially if the firm is bigger and there's multiple attorneys. Payroll would only be on it if there is a payroll in the firm. Typically a attorney that's a partnership, if there's no staff and they're paying like paralegals and legal assistants as 1099 employee, 1099 contractors, those would be the ones that are, you would see no payroll on because there is no payroll. The partners in the law firm don't have a payroll unless their partnership is an LLC that has elected to act as a sub S corporation. So if the law firm is an LLC acting as an S corp, I think I said that backwards. If the law firm is an LLC that acts as an S corp, then you want to make sure that the law firm has the partners on there as shareholders and not as we stated up here, partner equity, which is, this is all the balance sheet part. Like I said, a lot of the files that we run into that we do cleanup on, people don't state that equity section very well. You want to ensure that you do have that properly stated for the type of firm that the attorney is in. Again, this is things that you'll learn as you go, but for sure, you're going to want to know how to state it and understand the differences in how the law firm is structured. Now, for working with law firms, you want to make sure that you have your income and your expenses stated properly. And you can sign up as a bookkeeper to be a pro advisor. Get certified in QuickBooks. Very, very important. You get certified in QuickBooks, and then you will have a way to get a free instance of QuickBooks for your own bookkeeping firm. And then you can add the clients as the accountant. And then that will be listed all like in a hierarchical view of all your clients, and you'll have access to your own books and you'll have access to all the clients. While you're in there, get certified in QuickBooks, learn the software, know it inside and out. You don't have to go so far as advanced, although that's not a bad thing. It's not called advanced, it's called level 2 now, but you don't really need to do that as you're getting started, but at least get certified in the software. And then once you're certified in that software, also take the bookkeeping exam because there's a bookkeeping test in there. So you understand how the bookkeeping works. You understand the big picture. That's one of the things we find a lot of times with bookkeepers is they don't know the big picture. They only know part of it and they don't know the full picture. So when it comes to like a journal entry, they just like, oh, I don't want to do a journal entry. So what are the parts of bookkeeping that you're going to need to know how to do? So we talked about the bank feed. We talked about the income and the expenses. Sometimes we match. Sometimes if the transactions are existing, you're going to match them. Expenses you're going to put in, and usually you'll see that more into the credit card, but also expenses could be matching to bill payments or just straight up expenses. It could also be sales receipts if you're doing client work, matching to sales receipts, matching to bills, or invoices as they're called in QuickBooks, client invoices, client payments. But when we speak about invoicing for a client that's a law firm client, we call it billing. So that gets a little bit confusing. You're going to need to learn the terminology of what is stated in a law firm's scenario working with lawyers. There's a whole nother video and article on that in the Law Lab. So you really want to go find that and learn the lingo. That's a big part of it. Now, When we're talking about accounts receivable for lawyers, you're looking at usually they're in an external software. That could be Clio, it could be Lean Law, it could be My Case, it could be Practice Panther. There's at least 1,000 different billing software. Sometimes they have no billing software. Then it's just straight up QuickBooks. I don't recommend that, but sometimes if it's a small enough firm, it's okay. You can get away with it. If it's Clio, you're going to be matching to the Clio transactions because everything for the customer side in that external billing software, whether it's Clio, Lean Law, or another software, you're going to be matching to their transactions that are in the books. Then when it comes to the billing, for the vendor side, the bills, there's other software out there. QuickBooks actually has the software that you can forward the transactions. So as you're getting the bills in as the bookkeeper, you could forward them into QuickBooks using that unique name. I should actually show you that. And then you could use that as a way to import the visual, import a little picture of the bill, and then attach it to the transaction. Let me go back to QuickBooks here and just show you. So if you go under transactions, that's how you get to bank feeds. And then receipts are here. And typically there is a way, as you can see, you can copy the email address or manage the email. And then you can name this whatever you want. As you can say, this is called Craig's_design. You could actually just put the initials here and just set it up. You can send it to anyone. You can kind of fine tune this here. This is Intuit Assist. It's their AI, and you're starting to see it pop up in different places. You can also drag and drop documents, but I like to just forward them into the system. And then in here, you can review what's here, and then you can push them in along the details. So if I had a bill sitting here waiting for me to handle it, I would enter the bill, and then it would show up under the expenses side under bills. And I'll just show you what a bill looks like here. So if we go, let's see, I want to go to a prior bill. So it doesn't look like I can grab one really simply, but if you wanted to see a bill, you can go to a bill payment and then really quickly hop into the bill. And so this is what your bill would look like, and the attachment would land here. So it's a really nice feature, especially when working with law firms. So a lot of times their expenses are going to be expenses that are used for the clients. So they're client expenses. You're going to see a category called advanced client cost or client cost advanced. And basically that's the expenses that the law firm pays for, despite that they have a retainer and they're holding money on the client side. They have this money coming out of the law firm's operating to pay for these expenses. Sometimes they pay out of the trust account. That's a whole different story. So like I said, this is a very high level video, but I want you to understand that you're going to see that. And it's nice to attach those pictures, the image of the bill. So that way the client, if you're a law firm client, your attorney has a question about a bill, they can just click on the transaction, grab the bill. They're not calling you to find out why is this here? I see this expenses listed underneath this one client are really high. I'm trying to do my billing. I don't think they're all supposed to be for this client. You can actually click there and see the name of the client on the bill, and that's how you tag it. Which brings me to another topic. A lot of times the attorneys like to use the cheapest QuickBooks, not the best choice. They have to at least be in Plus, and most of them need to be in Advanced because their chart of accounts gets a little bit bigger when you start to list all the trust accounts as sub-liability accounts on the ledger. I have lots of articles on that as well, how to set up the trust account properly. And I probably will do another one in the future, but they're going to need the bigger file. They're going to need Plus minimally because you need to be able to attach that client name to the advanced client cost to make it billable, to have it be able to be billable back, or you're going to do some of that, handle some of that inside of Clio or Lean Law, whatever legal software, and you're going to need to have that ability to tag it to the client account. You can't do that in Essentials or Simple Start. There's just no way you can do that. So know that that's part of the workflow, and they're going to need to be in those tiered products, which are still pretty inexpensive as far as software goes. So we kind of touched on the income side with the billing, which will come out of like a Clio or a Lean Law, and that all gets pushed into QuickBooks, and then the client payments are handled outside in that external software, which is different than if you're working as a bookkeeper with a different type of client that might be handling everything through QuickBooks. Say you have a contractor, they're doing their estimates to bills, to bill, estimates to invoices, and then customer payments for the whole income cycle. Sometimes you're going to get clients that just straight up just say anything that comes through the operating account is my money coming in from my work, and then just book that to income. But with billing with attorneys, you're going to see that the invoicing happens in an external software. That external software should be connected to QuickBooks and is pushing the data into QuickBooks. And then as the invoices come through, which we call bills, they come through, and then the payments come through, and that's typically where you're going to see that. Another task that you're going to handle for a client is payroll. In today's world, payroll is pretty much handled by having an outside service, whether it's a Gusto or using QuickBooks Online Payroll. It's very simple to go into the payroll section on the left navigation bar, start to connect it, put it together, turn it on, set it up. Very easy, simple to use. Way different than back in the old days where we had spreadsheets and we're looking through the books and looking through details to do the checks and things like that. We don't have to do any of that anymore. It's very simple. If you turn on the one in QuickBooks, it's really simple because it's embedded in the product. Gusto, you have to do a little bit of work on the outside to map it in and push it in, or ADP or Paychex or whatever your client's using. Know that you should be going into that software. If they're using something other than QuickBooks, you need to go onto their software, get that login. Sometimes it's called an accountant's login. And then you're going to need to back map and back code that software into QuickBooks. So it gets mapped properly. So the wages get pushed into the wages category in QuickBooks. Like I said, with QuickBooks, it's easier because it's right inside the product, but not everybody uses QuickBooks. So know that that's part of it. Another big part of what we do is we provide them with financial reports. Normally, that would be your balance sheet and your profit and loss, and you do that monthly. You can also set up a management report where that has everything. Let me share my screen again and show you the management report. So very simply, the reports are right here on the left navigation bar. Everything's on the left navigation bar. And you have your standard reports right here, which you can actually highlight and make favorited. And these are the ones you're probably going to use the most, is these three that came up by default. But there's also a management report, and you can see we have a company overview. It's already set for the reporting period of this year. And you can pretty much print that out or preview it out. I don't know what's in this file, and it looks really nice. And you can put your logo, and you can put like who prepared it. And you can come through here and look at a profit and loss report very nicely. But it's nice because it's all bucketed into a packet, and it looks nice. It's a nice presentation to the client. And then you can see the balance sheet here. And that's pretty much it in the basic one. You can modify this as well. But like I said earlier, it's really important that you take the time to learn the software and learn all the great features that are in here. There really are a lot of features inside of QuickBooks. It's important to know the software, but also to understand why you're doing it, where things go, get that bookkeeping certification, because that's really critical. But that in a nutshell is really what bookkeepers do. Is we handle those tasks and amongst others. And that's actually a lot. So with attorney's books, you're going to be handling the trust, which is a whole different beast. So you're going to have your trust bank account, your trust liabilities. So when those things get deposited, the money gets debited into the bank account, credited into the liability account. And as the transactions come across and start to come through, the ins and the outs of the trust liability, they're tagged to the client's account. And then you are going to have to prepare a three-way bank reconciliation for your client. That's an extra piece of work, an extra body of work that you would do as a legal bookkeeper that you don't have to do if you work for other clients, which is why we charge more money. It's a very important report for the client. Really important that if you get a law firm client, go to that bar association where the law firm practices and understand what's required of the attorney from the bookkeeping side. They typically, every single law firm, every single state has rules and regulations, and you want to learn those inside and out. And you really should take the time to learn the language, learn the lingo, what you're going to hear around the law firm. Client cost is also important. You want to make sure you reconcile the advanced client cost account. And basically, as the client spends money on an expense for their client, and then it gets invoiced, you get your invoice and your expense and then your invoice. And now you can, they can just negate each other, but you want to get them off the records. You want to reconcile them away so that keeps clean books. So that's really all the things you really need to know about being a bookkeeper. Very high level. There's a lot more tasks involved, but at least this will help you get started. And if you have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out. We also have an amazing group of people called the Accountants Law Lab. Some of them have no attorney clients, but they're there just to learn about what's required. And some of them have many. So come join us. It's a great group of people and we all learn from each other every week. On that note, I'll see you all next week. Bye now.